Friends, welcome to the channel, and let's talk about a camera I hate to love, which means I really want to love this camera. I want to keep this forever. I think it's a brilliant camera, but it has some quirks which I want to talk about. This is the Fuji X100VI, and I know there are a lot of videos, a lot of reviews, a lot of people have spoken about it. I think a lot of hype around this camera is caused by a few reasons, but is it all good? Is the story all good? No. And that's what I really want to talk about if you stick around till the end of the video. So let's start with why I want to love this camera, because I think this is one camera in my kitty which I want to take and I can take everywhere. If I remove all paraphernalia, I remove all these accessories I've put, it can slide into a coat pocket and I can just drive off. I can kind of hold it single hand and just shoot. It's so light and beautiful. The looks, oh my God, they're to die for. So I think it's a brilliant camera that can go with you everywhere, and of course it does great video. I love the 40 meg sensor because when I shoot street, I really sometimes have to crop because the composition is not exactly what I wanted. There are some unwanted elements. Sometimes I'm not able to get as close as I would love to. So I do have to crop. So the 40 meg sensor really helps. And the film simulations, oh my God, I just love them. And also recipes available for other film simulations. So this is just amazing that you can just shoot film recipes and don't necessarily have to post-process them later to give it a certain look. So all that, I think, go for the camera, and that is why there's so much hype about it. But then where is the problem? So there are 2 or 3 problems. One, the lens itself. Now it's not necessarily a big complaint. I can absolutely live with that f2 lens. It is a little soft at f2 on this 40 meg sensor. I don't know how the previous versions were because I've never used an X100 series before. This is my first one. So I don't know how it has been earlier, but I find that when I really blow up a portrait or a face, it's not tack sharp. Now, does that bother me? Not really, because I don't necessarily blow up everything. I don't crop till I drop. And when you're shooting street, you're probably not even at f2, so it really doesn't matter. So that's that apart. I think there is also a problem with how much you can really push the ISO. Now, let's say I'm shooting street, and sometimes even 1:125 is not good enough because people are walking, moving. So I kind of tend to push the shutter speed to about 200. And even if I shoot at f2, although I would love to shoot at narrower apertures because I want really good depth of field, but f2 on a 23mm lens on a crop sensor has decent depth of field. So that is not always a problem, but even at that f2, if it's a cloudy kind of day, the ISO has to move beyond 4000 to maybe 6400 or whatever, and I find it very noisy. Now, is that a big problem? Probably not, because denoise function in the raw processing of Adobe is absolutely brilliant. It just takes away all the noise and renders a beautiful image, but I don't want to necessarily do that to all pictures. It takes time. So that is one gripe, but again, I understand it's an APS-C sensor. It's gonna have that kind of noise performance. So I think I can live with that too. But here's something that I find a big problem, especially when I'm doing street photography. And what is that? That is the autofocus of this camera. Now, don't jump on me saying, hey, if you're a street photographer, you should know zone focusing and blah, blah. Yes, I know zone focusing. I've lived with the Leica M9, the M9 monochrome, and all Leicas after that. the latest being the M11 monochrome. So I understand zone focusing. I do resort to zone focusing, but in 2024, when autofocus has become so capable across cameras and brands, why should I really resort to zone focusing? Why can't I do selective focusing on what I want to focus, maybe at a shallow aperture, be a little creative on the street? That's where the problems start. So let's talk about where exactly the problem is. Now, if you're using single focus point and one shot focus, which is the AFS single shot, it is not necessarily a problem. So you kind of compose or you take the focus point over your subject, place it, click, no problem at all. If the subject is moving, that's where the problems start. If the subject is moving and you resort to this kind of focus, then obviously by the time you press the shutter, the subject has moved, so they tend to get out of focus. But if the object is still, there is no problem. Absolutely kills it. So if that's what you shoot still objects, you shoot portraits where the subject is not moving all the time, no problem. You can live with this focus. Now let's come to continuous focus. What happens when I put it on continuous focus? The camera randomly changes what it's focusing. Now you might have eye on because this has eye focus. So, and if the subject is a little far and the eye cannot be detected, then it detects the head, which is great. And if even the head is small, then it detects the body, which is fantastic. But here's what it does. It randomly changes the focus after it has hit upon someone. So even if I keep it on tracking, once it has identified someone and locked onto someone, it suddenly changes. And logically now, you would think that if somebody is prominent, that is in the nearer to the frame than further away from the frame, it would tend to lock on the person near to the frame. It doesn't do that. It can actually jump pretty erratically between faces, and that poses a bit of a problem when you're trying to nail focus on a particular person or object. So that is one of the things that really throws me off because of this erratic changing. And that is what is stopping me from completely loving this camera. I don't know if it's a possibility to be improved by firmware. I'm not that kind of a techie who can predict that. But if they do that, I think this is a camera for a lifetime. This is just brilliant. I love carrying it everywhere I want to shoot, but the focus behavior is what is too erratic for my liking. And I've compared this with the Leica. The Leica does a much better job. I'm coming up with a review or, to show you what's really going on with the focus of that camera. And when I compare, I can clearly see the Leica is ahead. And remember, the Leica Q3 also is the first generation of face detect, PHASE detect. So they seem to have figured that out in the Leica Q3 and have gone ahead. The other thing is, in street, I love shooting from the hip. So when I'm shooting from the hip, one of the things I love, which they introduced in the Q3, thank God, is the flip screen. The Q series did not have that. Now they have it. So now I also put all these cameras, whether it be my Leica or this, to touch, focus and shoot. Why do I do that? So that I don't alarm people that I'm actually shooting them. That's why I don't get it to my eye level. I keep it at waist level and I just look at the LCD and then tap whoever I want to shoot, and then the camera takes the picture. That really helps me when I'm doing street. But guess what? While on the Leica it works great, on the Fuji, again, this lag kicks in. So, and I don't know whether it's a little more pronounced when I'm using the tap focus and shoot function. So I click or I tap on the LCD and there is a bit of a lag, and then the picture is taken. So between this time, the subject has moved and focus might be thrown off, or even if the focus kind of latches on, it's tracking, but the subject has moved. So I don't know what's going on. So that kind of is a big problem according to me. If they fix this problem, that would make this camera an absolute joy to work with. So my miss rate is very high when I shoot with the Leica versus the Fuji X100VI. In the Leica also misses focus, and I really push it too hard. So maybe 10-20%. This one is like 50%. And that is, and even when the faces are prominent and there's only one face in the frame, even then, and eye detection is on, it kind of focuses somewhere else. And that is weird. Why would it do that? So that, I think the algorithm, kind of learns, and hopefully it learns better and they improve it through firmware. If they do that, I'm sold. Otherwise, I don't know. I might have to really sell this camera. What has been your experience? Comment and subscribe. So far enjoying this camera except for this quirk of autofocus. What is your take on this? Do comment and subscribe to the channel. Thank you.